What's up, everybody? This is the poker coaching study session. Today, I want to look at how our strategy changed based on board texture, whether you're EP, MP, or the button. So let's get started. So here we have ace 10 deuce rainbow, and we're 40 big blinds deep under the gun versus big blind. So here we don't really bet small, right? We do range bet. We use big sizes a lot, right? Half pot, a little bit, 80% pot. That's like 40% of our strategy here. And then over betting, that's like 55%. So you need to bet big on both boards, right? When you're EP. So ace high rainbow, you bet big from EP. Not not that you don't bet small, it's just not a big part of the strategy, right?
Called you do single sizing?
Um,
AI?
Well, click on, if you want to do it, click on this, click on the 125, the 83 and the 55, all of them, and see how much that covers. See what hands just get knocked out entirely of the range. So it hates doing it with the aces, kings, queens. It hates doing it with high pocket pairs.
Sure, makes sense, right? Because those are just like either check, like you wanna, no interest in betting pocket kings, right? You gain EV by capturing bluffs here, not by betting and getting called when there's an ace on board. So makes sense. You either will like wanna bet small or check, right? But I think like the general idea here is that we bet big. If you want to look at the solution from the machine. Machine wants to pot it.
What's the difference between this solution and the previous solution? This is an AI solution with only one size?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
right.
So if you only had one size, make it pot.
Whereas
But now you
now,
don't want to bet range. If you have to
yeah,
bet pot, you don't want to bet range
yeah,
because it hates betting pot with kings and queens. Makes
for sure,
sense. And
for sure.
the shitty aces.
So now if we look at the strategy from the low jack, so the later our position gets, the more we get to use the small size.
Right.
You still check just about as much, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you don't overbet it much anymore. You start to use less of the 80%. So our general strategy move towards like a smaller size, right? Of
Do,
the whole
do we
jack.
know do we know why we use a smaller size a lot more often here?
Well, our range is a little bit wider, right? So
Right.
if you want to bet range and then your range is wider, the wider your range is, the more you need to bet small, kind of, right? Because you can't like, because if you see here, like, for example, on the button, we have like a even wider range, right? So
Hmm.
you can say, okay, I'm gonna like polarize with such a wide range because you're gonna bleed EV, right?
Yep.
So the wider your range is, the more you want to bet small if you're gonna range that. So we can see like the strategy shifts from, it literally goes from a lot of big bets, right? Over bets, big bets, to very little big bets, right? Just small bets, like the funny because the polar part kind of comes back, right? Because it kind of leaves here from the low jack, but it comes back from the button, right? But overall, the general idea is our range is wider. We just range bet small versus on the earlier we are, the more we go for like a super polar strategy, check a little bit more, and then we bet on the bigger side, kind of. Okay, so that's for the ace and deuce rainbow. Now let's look at a paired king board. So paired king from EP, we just range bet small, no checking, right?
Hmm.
But there is sometimes we use a little bit of the 33%. Whereas from the low jack, we just really use 20%, right? And then from the button, we really only use 20% again. But overall on those king eye pair boards, we see our strategy doesn't change whether we're EP, MP or button. If we look at a king eye with a flush draw type of board, so kind of very dynamic, right? The top pair could switch, the flush can complete, the straight can complete. So a lot going on here. So on this texture, a lot of big bets. Right? A little bit of small bets. So it's a range bet, right? Not much checking. And then kind of using the big size a lot, right? So from EP, on this kind of texture, you bet big. Now, we go from what was a range bet. So now we have 40% checking, and this is just like 2 seats away. Right, so already a very interesting difference here. Right, we go from range betting any two, kind of big, to checking 40%. That's a lot, right?
Yeah.
Something is going on here.
Is there a reason that we have a lot more middle pairs from the next position?
It must be the 8s and the 7s, right? Because, well,
Yep, because before we were condensed to top pair and some strong draws, I guess.
then we're like range betting with our small pairs here, whereas we don't really do that anymore here, right? We really don't. Oh, we're shifting our pair, the big shift in our checking range, like ace queen off. Ace queen is like pure betting here, or almost, whereas now it's like very heavy checking. Um, which range has more top pairs? Probably under the gun has better slash more.
As a percent of the range, yeah.
It's on ranges.
On ranges, huh? Would be here.
Here,
So here it would be and top pair 21%. And then ranges and top pair, yeah. 19%.
It's surprising when you look across the equity, the line graph. It's surprising how much the strategy changes when the lines don't change that much. You still have a big equity, a big range advantage and a big nut advantage, both in
Well,
both
you
cases.
can, yeah, but you can see it's a lot closer already, right? The lines
Yeah,
are
it gets
a lot
closer,
closer.
but it never crosses.
The lower line is higher, which means the average range is stronger.
Yeah.
Right, and then, so a lot closer here, right? And then now let's see what happens when, because we didn't look at the button strategy. So On this type of texture, the later your position is, the more checking you get to do. That's a nice, nice difference, right?
Take a look at the range lines for this one.
Not very instinctive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, even closer and closer
Get
and
closer, but we still have it.
yeah.
Okay.
So king eye with the flush draw, far from a range bet. From the button, but then a range bet from E EP.
So could you lock button c betting to white?
No, that's not the point Arthur has today. So the difference is, our range is a lot wider. Right? We use the small size a lot here. We don't use the small size a lot here from the button. About MP. MP also does not use the small size at all. So EP's range is tighter, can use a small size. The button's range is too wide here and misses this texture too much. So also probably the flush draw strengths are checking range. So on a flush draw board, if we have a tight range, our flushes are stronger, I guess. So we can bet a little bit more often. Whereas here our flushes are all over the board, right? We got like some 6-high flushes sometimes. Right, so the flush draw probably has a big impact. So interesting, right? But another very interesting thing that we find. Okay, so let's write that down a little bit here.
Also saying, I'm not sure, but now we also have some 7x, and I guess we want to get them to showdown, right? So there's actually no reason to bet a hand like, let's say, Queen 7 on a King 8-7 board.
The later your position is, the wider your range is, the more checking you get to. Who has Discord notification on? The more checking you get to do. And button. Okay. On flush raw boards from EP, our flushes are stronger. So we can bet more. So let's leave that as an hypothesis for now. Okay. So another fine distinction.
I think, yeah, as said, from early position, we basically only have top pair or big pairs above the 8. But from the button, we also have the 7 as a pair. something like Queen 7, Jack 7.
Well, that's also noticeable, right? The EP doesn't,
I don't know, board on like
well,
this.
we do have a bunch of eights and some sevens, but it's not
Yeah,
a,
but all the 8x basically have a backdoor to a straight, or they have an overcard, or they have. I mean, they're actually really good 8x hands, right? And the 7x from
oh,
button, I don't.
so it has to do with this, right? The offsuit.
Yeah, and the suited ones are
Even
really strong.
yeah. So like, check this out, like those we bet, but those weak offsuit ones, we can't bet anymore. Okay, so it has to do with that, right? So,
I mean, we could look at it if we switch afterwards the 7 to something different, like a 4 of spades, if that makes a huge difference.
I guess this is it. So the button, like that's the big difference, right? The button has offsuit eight-X. So less weak pairs, so
Yes,
the
true.
weak pairs want, like, weak pairs, like look at queens here under the gun, right? Queen, that's a weak, kind of a weak pair. It's gonna perform better by bluff catching, right? So a lot more weak pairs in the button's range.
Yeah, sound actually perfect.
Okay, so we can probably summarize it to this. Button has more weak pairs. Slash. EP has more strong pairs. Right, so pretty nice difference on this king eye board. Right, now let's see a 9-8-5 with the flush draw type of board. So from under the gun. Here we check a lot. Majority check, right? 60% checking. Then when we bet, it is very, very polar. So bigger sizes. That makes sense, right? You wanna bet big with ace nine, with pocket tens, jacks. All makes sense. And then a lot of checking. Whereas we look at hello, Jack. Oh. 60% check too. 40% check. Hmm. Very interesting. So on this type of texture, I was gonna say the later the position you are, the more you get to bet, but that's not true. Okay, so the low jack actually gets to bet more than under the gun on this type of texture. So a 9-8-5 actually favors the low jack because
That makes sense because we just don't have, because our tail is too thin. We don't have the fat tail that hits 9-8-5. If you look under the gun, all that,
yeah,
look at,
the not very
it's,
strong on the 8x, right?
you're never strong on the 8x, but more importantly, you're just absent the 6-7 for the straight. You're absent the fives, the straight draws down here.
Okay,
Whereas look
this part,
look at
okay?
yeah, look at the low jack.
Oh, yeah,
There it
okay.
is. That's where your strength comes. You still have the 9-8. You still have the 2 pair under the gun,
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
but you don't have the 9-8, the 8-7. So you don't have the pair plus gut shot. You don't have the straight.
You don't flop it full frequency.
Yeah, well, you don't flop it at all
Yeah.
under the gun. The 6-7 isn't there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it actually looks like even just having a 7 in range here is so important. Just for the open ender.
Nine of spade, eight of spade, five of diamond. Low jack gets to bet the most. He has the tightest range that connects with the board. He flops the straight. And under the gun never flops it. What else is under the gun never flopping?
When you bet big, you want to have enough bluffs, right? And that's probably the problem for the earliest position here. He doesn't have enough bluffs to bet big a lot of times.
Alright, and then we look at the button strategy here. Button is actually going back to checking a lot. Ton of eights in range, so those don't wanna bet. The fives don't wanna bet.
Yeah, but here again, he has enough bluffs, and now he can go bigger on the bigger sizings. A little bit more.
Right, again, EP checking 60%. MP checking 40%. LP checking 50%. So 60, 40, 50. So the betting clearly falls on the betting responsibility kind of falls on the low jack here. He has the advantage on this board. He flops it. He has the kind of narrowest nutty range. He has the best top pairs. The best like let's see. Maybe this will tell us more. Hmm. So sets over pairs, 1% straight, blah, blah, blah. And if we look at like, equity buckets, top ends versus EP, range, look at the hands, 0% straight. A little bit more sets though. A little bit more over pairs, right? Look at the equity buckets. Ah, okay, so the best hands never has the very best hands. And then look at the lines as well, how it's like fighting with each other here, whereas here, kind of the same, no? Right, so the button's range is too wide. Doesn't contain enough nuts as like the percentage of the hand. I presume that's why we check so much. So very interesting differences again here. Right? Who would have thought that this board texture favors the low jack? Alright, let's see another one. Ace, queen, nine. Alright, so ace, queen, nine here. Under the gun is betting range almost. Only checking 40%. Under the gun is using the big size pretty much only, right? Alpha, 80%. So bet big. And then that's it, right? That's pretty much under the gun strategy on this texture, right? Whereas let's see the low jack strategy. Almost the same, right? We check 1% more, so very similar. Now the first strategic difference is, not really. Seems very similar, right? You guys see a difference here? 16%, 15%, so like it's not using the small size more. Let's see those big size. So it is using the big size a little bit less. Merging towards half pot a little bit more, right? So kind of similar, right? Similar strategy on ace queen nine. And then if we look at the button, oh, big surprise now. The button has a very different strategy. He's not range betting big at all. So EPMP on ace queen nine, you can actually range bet big, but the button cannot. On ace of spade, queen of spade, nine of hearts. Under the gun, and low jack can range bet big, but the button cannot. Is actually using the small size a lot more. Because we're still very close to a range bet from the button, if you look at it, right? It looks like there's more green, but still 15% checking. Right, so very balanced. But now we get to use the small size 20%, which was never a thing here. Right? So the big difference here is the 20% size. Which is not a thing from EP. So strategic difference, very big here. From EP, you actually don't bet big, don't bet small, and then from the button, you actually bet small. So we found another very big strategic difference. Let's see now, Jack 5-4 rainbow. Right. So Jack high rainbow, under the gun versus big blind, we don't check at all here. And we use a very polar strategy, over bet, big bet, big bet. Bet small a little bit, right? And
Yeah, I mean,
now,
it's still betting small 40%.
now, the big difference is we don't check anymore. Well, we still don't check, I mean. We start to use the polarized size a lot less, right? 5% less over bet, 7% less, 80% sizing. So the later our position is, the less we polarize on this jack high rainbow board, the more we get to use a small size. 25. So 40% here, whereas it's 60% here. We use the small size a lot more, so strategic difference here. And then, ooh, look at that. We go from range bet, and we clearly see the difference. Like EP, you polarize, you bet any two with big bets. LP, you start to use 60% small bets, you still range bet. And then LP, you don't use the big size anymore. And then now you check 30%. And then you really only bet small. So let's try that next. So on Jack, spade, 5 of hearts, 4 of diamonds. Under the gun gets to range bet using big size. Low Jack gets to range bet using small. And the button is going not range betting and only using small sizing. Only using small size. So we shift from a polar strategy to like a weak, how do you call that? Like it's not a range bet, a strong range bet. Polar. Well, thing is, we can't say polar because we're not checking. To bet small, check a lot strategy. The later your position gets. So very interesting strategic difference. Now let's see a board like 6-4 deuce rainbow. So EP here,
Terrible for EP.
not very good, right?
No.
30% check.
But
Only
we have
overbet. Overbet or check. Little bit of bet small. Right? But we look at the low jack. Oh, the low jack's actually
Louis, I would change that, what you just said. You said only overbet, little bit of bet small. If you look at it, it bets small as much as it overbets.
Sure.
Just
But
splitting it between two sizes. So it's you have an overbet section, and you really wouldn't want to ignore the bet small section and put it all into overbets. I think that would be a bad simplification here.
yes, but the point is to look at how like strategy changes from a position to another, right?
Right, I know. I'm just saying you described this as only overbets, very little bet small, and I don't think that's a good description of that strategy.
Yes. So here we actually still overbet
Here we overbet more.
more.
There's more overbets here than there is from under the gun.
Okay, also more checking.
Yeah.
Less small bet. And then okay, so now which position? Okay, so the later the position, the more we get to check. All right.
Mhm.
And then the later the position, I kind of want to say the less you use the overbet, but it's not true. because low jack uses it more than the hijack.
And what you want to look at when you do that is you don't want to look at the absolute number of the absolute percentage of overbets. You want to look at the ratio of overbets to small bets. As because you've already acknowledged that you're checking more and more. So when you bet, do you bet overbet more or bet small more? So take a look at that comparison. Add your 55 is not an overbet. So you've got
You get to use the small size less.
Yeah.
Which is weird, right? Well, actually, it's probably just like your small bets go into the check as you
Yeah.
get later positions, right? Because the big bets are all the same, right? It's all the big six and the over
they-
pairs, right?
and
Either
the vulnerable over pairs.
over pairs and the big six.
Yeah.
Right, so those kind of stay static. The thing that changes is that you get more of them.
Yeah, as you pick up more of the sixes. Yeah.
What else is changing on this strategy? Wider range, more checking.
I think that the observation you just made is really good, that the hands that overbet stay the same. It's your vulnerable overpairs, because the queens, kings, and aces don't bet big very often, and your sixes. And
Oh,
it's just you getting
yeah.
more of those. It's how much of a range those few hands, those overbet hands are.
Okay. All right. All right. So now let's see some other board. What do we got here? 4 deuce. 8, 6 deuce, very similar. Oh, 10, 8, 3. That looks good. So first off, from EP, those are gonna take a few seconds, but sure. So we go for, what is it? 10 of spades, 8 of heart, 3 of spades. Alright. So from EP, range bet, semi board. Using big sizes a lot. Not really small. Bet any two, semi board. Use bigger sizes. I'll pot a lot. Right, and then from the low jack, we check less. So 10% checking here to 4% checking here. Big bets are used more often. 20% to 25%. Small bets. So, okay, so this is the part that shrinks, I guess. Kind of says the same. Okay. So those 10-eye board get to bet more from the low jack than we bet from EP. Right? What about the button? Oh. Surprise, now we check 25% of the range. And so EP, range bet, LP, MP, range bet even more. So big size here, big size here even more. And then now we shift back to mostly small sizes. 25% checking. Why do we check so much? Because offsuit eights, we don't even check those. What's checking here? Those low pocket pairs? But they didn't mind betting all the way. What else? These eight, suited eight. Again, they didn't mind betting too much here.
I mean, weak 10x, weak 8x, we had some 3x.
That makes sense. That makes sense. No weak tens here, only strong top pairs. Only strong
Yeah,
top pairs here.
We're not looking to play a 3-street hand for 40 big blinds with 10-5 off here, 10-5 suited here, right?
10-7 very, it makes sense. Okay. Yeah, I think that's the thing here. So, on a board like on 10 of spades, 8 of hearts, 3 of spades, EP and MP have only really strong top pairs that don't mind playing 3 streets.
Top and
Well-
second pairs, right? 8x is a second pair.
While the button is not thrilled to play 3 streets with his worst top pairs like 10-7-0. EP, EP and MP are both range betting using this big size a lot, where the button, whereas the button is checking 25% of the time. And using the small sizes a lot more. Okay, nice strategic difference. Okay, let's see another texture. So. Oh, ace high monotone. I think monotone is gonna be the same for, well, we can look. We can look quickly, but I feel like those, whether you're EP or MP or LP, you're just gonna range bet small, right? Possibly. So let's see. So ace high monotone, and then this one has what? A 6, 6-5. Ace, 6-5. Ace, 6-5. Ace, 6-5. Let's have a look. Ace high monotone. So from EP, you're actually checking 50%. Oh my god. Okay, so I see already there's gonna be think a kind of a big strategic difference. So checking 50% of the time on ace high boards, monotone. MP, very similar, right? We only use the small size, we check a lot. We only use the small size, we check a lot. What about the button? The button is checking less often. Look at that. So the button is actually betting more. So strategic difference. On ace 6-5 monotone, the button. Oh, EP actually, EP and MP gets to check 50% of the time. While the button gets to bet more and only check 35% of the time. Very nice. Another strategic difference. Let's see. Paired ace sideboard. Okay.
Uh,
Yes.
Do we know why that's happening? Because I personally feel like early position has a lot of really strong something like king queen offsuit with a king of spades,
Mhm.
and it's very condensed. Why are we checking so much more from early position
My
compared
impression is,
to
my impression is the flush is gonna be a bigger portion of our range. So flush 6% here from under the gun, right?
Mhm.
And then button. Flushes,
I mean it's
no, it's less. I thought it would be more, but it's actually less.
yeah, I'm not sure because I thought just having the king of spades in hand, let's say you don't even have another card, is really strong here, right? Uh yeah. I'm a little bit surprised here. I understand that button will open more suited hands, but I'm not sure if that's more in the range when it's not that condensed. So,
So when we're in early position and we flop a flush, we block a lot of the hands that are most likely to call us. When we
yes.
are in late position and we flop a flush, because we flop a lot of garbage flushes or much worse flushes, we unblock hands that can call us, like the single king or queen of spades. But from early position, we really just have the Broadway flush cards here on this board.
So we check king eight of spades here on the flop. Is that
Um,
the plan?
we're gonna check the best ones. So we're gonna check king queen of spades the most, and we're gonna bet like jack deuce of spades the most.
Hmm.
Yeah, like look at king queen of spades. It wants to check almost half the time. Yeah. And if you go down to like 10-4 of spades, it's gonna want to bet most of the time. Because you unblock him calling with the single king or queen of spades, which is part of the problem from early position when you flop a flush. All right, break time. Be right back.
Maybe also, even though the button has a smaller proportion of their range as flushes, they have 3 times the amount of combos. So combinatorically, there are more flushes. And if you're playing like top of range against top of range on these kinds of boards, we are more competitive with the button having just more flushes in terms of like number of combos. Even though it's fewer proportionally because the whole range is wider. I don't know how
Also,
relevant that would be.
interesting to see the difference though. Now, ace, king. So from EP, ace, king, you check 30% of the time. You don't really use, like it's paired, right? So we bet small or we check, right? That makes sense. Now, oh, we check more often from the low jack. So ace, king, we check more. I'm surprised. And then we don't really use the big size, but we use the output a little bit more often.
I have a guess.
no,
I have a
I-
guess to why.
Actually, no, we use it less, a lot less. But yeah, go ahead.
Which is, so normally our advantage is that we have the, like our ace advantage is we have the better aces. Or if there's a king, a single king out there, we have the better kings. But when it's a king board, it doesn't matter whether your king is good or bad. Because when you have a king, he doesn't. So it's who has a king. Any king is the nuts, right? And the kicker on your aces is not that valuable because you're worried because your aces are just marginally made against his shitty king. You can never, you can't go nuts with an ace on this board.
Yeah.
You're not going to go 3 streets with ace queen to try to get value from ace 5.
This board is also super dry, right? Even if he has a pair, I mean, what are you going to bet that he calls it with a pair? Or any holding. So
Yeah.
hard for him to continue.
Yeah.
So, okay, the number one thing that I see in terms of difference here, under the gun is using alpha 20% of the time, button is using alpha 0%.
Yeah.
Okay, so the later your position gets, the more you get to range bet small, kind of.
Yeah. I would call, is that really, you really calling that a range bet, Louis?
It leads toward range, like if you compare like 40% check, 30% check, this isn't a range bet. To me, a range bet is close to
80%. Yeah.
90%, 85% bet.
Right.
So this is like doesn't make it, but you see the tendency, like here we're polar, right? We use big size, small size, we check. Whereas here we're not polar so much.
Yeah.
Check or bet small.
Are the
Right.
suited hands that
What-
check, are they all mixed, or are spades checking more? Are hearts checking more? If you hover like Jack 8 suited here. I meant more for the button.
Yeah, just roll over your Jack 8 suited and look at it with all the suits on.
Or here, I guess, look at Queen 9. Or, yeah. I guess hearts check the most.
Yeah. The spade, and I'm getting, because the spades can continue. The hearts don't want to get, the hearts want to see another card, and the other two are so shitty they don't care.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's ever be interesting, but under the gun, queens, jacks, and tens can bet. Low jack is a pure check, And if you go from button, it's also a pure check for these three holdings.
Okay. Now, let's see a 7-eye board with a flush draw. So 7, 5 deuce. So from EP, we check 20%, a lot of overbetting, a lot of big bets, so very polar strategy. Oh, from the low jack, 20% more checking. Oh, look at this, more overbetting, a more polar strategy, more checking, more overbets. Little bit less, kind of 80%. A lot less alpha. Are we using the smaller size more? Less. So more checking, so more polar strategy on 7-eye boards. So almost betting any two here. To almost checking half of the time. To checking half of the time. So, all right, strategic difference. So on these low boards, on 7 spade, 5 of heart, deuce of spade, the later your position is, the more you get to check. The earlier your position is, that's true though. The more you get to bet, yeah, okay, it's the opposite, but are we more polar? No, we're actually more polar from the low jack.
And this is just because we have all the overpairs here. Basically, we are more condensed to our overpairs and overcards. Or is there another reason? Because I would have thought that we check a lot from early position on this board, but obviously we are not. We are just checking 20%.
Okay, nice one. Now let's see. Queen, jack eight with a flush draw. So which one is it? Which suit? What's the deal here? Queen of heart, jack eight. Queen of heart, jack eight. Okay, so from AP, range bet. Not so polar. Only using alpha. A lot of small sizes. So a range bet. It goes from a range bet to still a range bet. Very similar strategy. Right? The same, basically. And then, oh ho ho, surprise, Now the button gets to check 25% of the time. The button gets to use output more. Even you get to use 83% more, so slightly more polar. The 33% size is actually used by the low jack the most. I know. Okay, so anyway, the motion here is kind of clear. On Queen of Hearts, Jack of Spades, Ace of Spades, the later your position is, the more you get to check. Very interesting. What else can we say about those ranges? So I think it has to do with like the worst pairs, right? The worst eights, the worst jacks, the worst queen. Like Peter was saying, you probably don't want to get 3 streets with queen deuce here. Definitely not with jack deuce. Yeah, pocket 7, no spade. No interest in betting here. Whereas here, our range is just so narrow that we don't really care. Same for here. So what's the difference between this and this? Okay, so
When we check, are we just mega capped with button here? I mean, I guess we call 2 streets with the queens that we check. Depending on run out. I don't know, sometimes you see the checking range balanced by stuff like top set, but it looked like queen was pretty pure betting.
I think that in UTG and low jack, I think our hands run close with the big blind's defending range because they're probably defending offsuit tens from the big blind when UTG raises. So maybe because our hands are close together, we can just range bet.
well, I think you got it, Mike, but I don't like, I think you put your nail on the dot, like has to do with how the button, how the big blind is defending versus CP versus how it's defending versus the button, right? So this portion of the range, right? This is the big difference here. But okay, okay. So I guess I have to think it that then. Against CP. Queen 8. Doesn't have Queen 8, doesn't have Jack 8. Okay, that's it. That's right, Mike. You got it. So against EP, the big blind is not defending Queen 8 and Jack 8. Oh. But he is against the button. The big blind's ability to have two pair on this texture makes us or not makes us range bet. Nice one. Right. Let's see, king eye, rainbow, king 9-3. King 9-3. King 9.
These are my favorite boards. Disconnected rainbow. Should be just range bet, shouldn't it?
Oh, okay, so first
Oh.
strategy, so all three are range bets, right?
Yeah.
But now we get to polarize a lot versus from EP. A lot less already, like the overbets are shredding. The later your position is, and then even the big bets are shredding. Like this is just a range bet small already, and then the later your position is, the less you polarize, the more you just range bet small. So that's very big strategic difference, right?
So the overall takeaway is it's better to have the tight range of the under the gun than the big blinds range. That's what we've learned.
Yeah, for sure. EP gets to overbet. So that's the strategic difference here. The big bets are gone. Let's see, another one. Ace 7-3 rainbow. All right. Ace 7-3 rainbow. Ace 7-3 rainbow. So EP range bet. LP range bet. Oh, look at that. You guys see the difference? EP range bet small. No sizing up. Just a little bit of overbet, almost nothing. Low jack. No sizing up. No 50%, no half pot. Just range bet small. Button, surprise. Button uses big bets. That's funny. So I would expect the opposite motion, but here we are.
Yeah, that's surprising.
Yeah, definitely. I try to simplify flops like this from all positions because they're so disconnected in a way. I know there's a lot of gut shots, but I'll just bet small normally.
Probably big blind has more 7x
Check
and
raises.
3x
Yeah,
against the button range that we want to milk for like one big bet, one bigger bet.
do you think the big blind likes to check raise this flop when we bet small?
They have to be a little careful, right?
Yeah, I don't think they can check raise us from EP, right?
No, not EP, maybe button.
Yeah, no. I think you, again, put your nail on the dot, Mike. If we see bet any two from EP, there's no way he can do much against us on ace high. He has to overfold, he has to play very straightforward. But from the button, if we range bet small, he's gonna play back at us so much. Like here, he's gonna raise like 20%, 10%, right? He's
Yes,
never,
something like
never doing that,
4
so
or 5.
that's why we have to bluff when we bluff. That's why we get to
Yeah.
use bigger size, because those bluff are gonna perform better. So I guess that's what's going on here, because there's no way like we bet two here, he's never raising 10%.
I think it's more that he has offsuit sevens in his range against button, and we can capture more value. And then we're bluffing with two cards over the seven, the worst like suited eights and stuff.
Or yeah, is it more of a range composition thing?
DNet also wrote that button has ace3 offsuit and a7 offsuit. So we have more two pairs. I'm not sure if that's good reason.
Definitely. Okay, yeah. Actually, no, that's it. That's the reason. Who wrote that?
DNet
Dean.
in the chat.
Dean the criminal wrote that.
Hmm.
Okay, so the button actually has two pairs more often as EP.
That's
and
such a small portion of range. I
Never-
still contend that the 7x block is the most crucial here. But I think all of these are factors.
Yes. All of them will be some factors.
Because if we're EP, half pot is not efficient because he either has like air or he has an ace or some suited seven, suited three.
So very
And
nice
then we can
takeaway in
size
that
up
one.
later streets.
Nice one, Dean. Ace 5-4 with the flush draw. Let's see. Okay, so from EP, 31% check. I don't know how to describe that strategy. Very 30-30-30, I mean, right? So 30-30-30 here. Oh. But already less big bets from the low jack, less checking as well, and more small size. Then what is the button doing? Oh my god, look at that. Very big strategic difference here. Okay, so EP 31%, LP 25%, MP 20, and then LP no checking. Wow. Okay. On ace of spades, 5 of hearts, 4 of hearts. EP gets checked. What, 30% was it?
Yeah.
So big strategic difference here. EP. So if we look at alpha 22% versus here 20%. So is EP less polar? More polar actually. Okay, so more polar because EP actually use 80%, whereas the other two never uses 80% or rarely. So EP is more polar.
What I'm seeing the common factor is by looking at all these ranges is the way the big blind defends.
Right, like again here, he won't have offsuit 5x, he won't have
Yeah.
offsuit 4x,
That's right.
he won't have the gut shots.
I think again here it's a question of the button has always two pair, offsuit two pair. Ace four, ace five, right? Like low jack, ace four, ace five, but button has them all the time, so he's just like, yeah. So I think, I'm not sure. Even like 5-4 for the button, whereas like you never have that. So too short on two pairs. And the button has the two pairs every time.
Does big blind against under the gun, does big blind have ace 5 offsuit? Yes, right? Ace 4, ace 5 offsuit?
The EP, no,
No, but does big blind have it in the defense range?
yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think that's a good observation. So they have offsuit two pair, we don't. We have the best aces, but they have no offsuit second pair or third pair to target, really. It's like double whammy.
Let's see another one.
What if you made it ace 8 4? Or I guess we kind of looked at that. We had ace 7 3.
The jack 9 6. So jack 6 9. No, what have I done? Okay, so jack 9 6, was it like that? Let's draw with the two lows. No. Okay, jack 9 6 from EP. No small bet. Very little checking. We just bet big with range. Range bet big. From MP. Range bet big more. Less check. Less over bet. More like half-pot-ish. More like smaller sizes. We size down basically, clearly. And then from the button. So range bet Range bet even more. Check out of the top. So. Pretty big strategic difference here. Range bet big. Range bet, but even more often, but more small size. And then check out. Okay, how do you describe that? On. Jack of spade, 9 of heart, 6 of spade. EP is range betting big. And using over bets. MP is betting even more frequently. Using half pot more and smaller sizes more often, but also betting more often. And button is actually checking 40% of the time. Pretty huge difference. So, let's see. He has 2 pairs, but we still are very disrespectful. What is the difference here? Why is our range checking so much? From the button, we have a fairly huge advantage here. Fairly huge advantage, similar, but the lines are closer, right? Well, equities run closer, I guess, a lot closer, actually. Yeah, a lot closer. Range bet big, over bet. EP is over betting. LP is rarely over betting.
Yeah, Louis, I think again on the button, if we bet all our hands, the big blind can just put pressure on us and check raise us again. From the button where UTG and LP, low jack, we're a bit more tighter, so we can still put a lot of pressure on him, like, you know, on the player. That's you know, my 2 cents on that. So that's probably why we can't bet everything on the button.
Could be a thing.
And
Hey.
there is a common factor on the button is we're betting a lot of our junk as well, because we don't care if we get check raise, we can just fold.
So it looks like EP has a lot more nut hands than the button.
Yeah, just like Dean said as well, we don't want to get check raised, and we want to realize our equity more, maybe on the button as well. That's what we probably check more.
Maybe it's really as simple as you said. On the button we have a lot more weaker top pairs. On low jack or under the gun, we don't.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So we don't have a lot of hands that want to go through streets where we want to, realize equity, I guess.
I think that's it. Here,
Super simple to remember. Man, that's great.
the button has more weak pairs in the range, so has to do a lot more checking. EP has almost no pair of sixes. And the pair he has, those he has, have an overcard. So even those are strong. Kinda. Have equity. Okay. Nice.
The power of putting all our brains together, we get the answers.
Oh yeah. Let's see, queen ten deuce. So wait, the flush draw is with the queen and the 10. Queen ten deuce. Queen ten deuce. Queen ten deuce. EP. Range betting. Using big sizes some. Pop, pop. LP range betting using small sizes a lot. Oh, late position, range betting almost. Checking a little bit more, never using outbot. So only small. So strategic difference. Oh, I'm not. Queen spade, ten of spade, deuce of hearts. EP and MP gets to use alpha frequently, while the button is never used.
Yeah, I think the
Or
deuce has a big factor in that. It just disconnects everything from the queen and the 10.
all right. EP and MP, very similar strategy here. Checking less, the low jack's checking less. Low jack is using small sizes more. So, okay, so another thing we can say here. The later your position is, the more you get to use the smaller. The earlier, the more you use big size. All right. Nine, seven, four, rainbow. go.
I think this is a big bet.
40% checking. Overbet only, almost. 40% checking, almost only overbet. 50% checking. Pretty much only similar sizes, right? Okay, so here. 40%, 50%, 40%. So we can say on those 9 high rainbow. Nine, 7, 4 rainbow.
So look, can we put it as rainbow disconnected? Would that be like a better description? Because
Sure. The more you get, keep check. And then what about the big bets? The earlier your position is, the more you get to overbet. All right. Okay, let's jump to 8-4-3 with a flush draw. Okay, so from EP, 18% check. Lots of big bets. Little bit of overbet. From MP, oh. Twice more checking. More polar, more big betting. Alpha use more, big bet use more. No. Big bet, overbet use more. More checking, more big bets. So more polar strategy from the low jack. And then 33. Okay, so more checking, 10%. That's more. Wow. The later your position is, the more you get to overbet. You guys knew any of that?
nope, definitely not.
On 8 of spades, 4 of hearts, 3 of hearts. The later your position is, the more you get to overbet.
Okay, what one rule which isn't crossed here is basically that we have more top pairs which are strong on the button.
What? What did you say, Bob?
We have more top pairs that are strong, but now we have a lot of. No, actually, I'm wrong. Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, 8-5 has at least a gut shot.
Well. So this here has a very few top pairs. Almost no 2 pairs. Right?
Only overpairs.
But I think the low jack has all the eights. Oh, so that's why. Hmm? No, it's checking at twice more, right? Hmm.
Can he show the button again? Okay, we have more gut shots. Obviously. More flush draws. Flush draws with gut shots. We still have a lot of crap. I don't know. Pretty odd.
I don't know. Anyhow, right now, honestly, I feel like Homer Simpson with a monkey in my brain, playing
It's clapping.
some music instrument. So on that, we're gonna wrap it up. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, anything, comment, tell your friend about the channel, join our Discord, everything. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody.